actress, author, and you've been through a lot, and of course a relatively late ADHD diagnosis.
From being young, and I'm sure this will be a common thread, I always felt a little bit weird. I then became an actor, so I literally learned to mask. I was great at it. I cosplayed as a neurotypical person and I was very good at it.
There is a natural progressive pathway in acting, isn't there? That you will apply for a role and you will not get it. You'll read for a role, you won't get it. And that brings a professional resilience to maybe rejection. But then an emotional rejection is a completely different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Because it's you. In times of difficulty for me, I've learned that I need to create, not consume. I need to be in my space and I need to create something.
Being productive. How ADHD was that moment when you did that?
Looking back, Looking back, I'm like, that's where it really benefits us, right? Because there was no worry, there was no thought. We look for answers and we look for solutions and we're curious about how we do that. Looking at the stories you've been told, looking at the stories you're telling yourself. I can't do this, people like me don't do this. Says who?
Holly Matthews, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I've loved every conversation we've had. Massive positivity, and of course the Happy Me project, which is something we'll talk about. But actress, author, and you've been through a lot. And of course, a relatively late, 5-6 years ago, ADHD diagnosis. So we can't wait for this conversation.
I'm excited as well. And it's always weird when I'm on these kind of things, because when people list all of the things that I've done, even I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds good. I kind of forget the things that I've done. So
I think what mission aligns us is, your kind of backstory, if you like, has got some real trauma, some real grief with your husband dying. But I guess you wouldn't ultimately be here if that hadn't happened. And I think that's possibly somewhere where we start, because from a very dark place, you are shining a light yourself and to a lot of people.
I think for me, my brain always always has, I always want to find the good around the pain. And I'm fairly a hopeful person by nature. I do think there's an element of being, an element of natural kind of optimism. And I was just always looking for the good. None of us want to be unhappy. So I was always looking for, I guess, a solution. And when somebody dies that you love, that makes no sense. There's this energetic human being that you love and suddenly they're just not there. Your brain doesn't find that easy to make sense of. And so what I tried to make sense of was the bit around it. Not toxic positivity, not everything's fine. This is awful. But where's the good? And the Happy Me project had been an idea, I guess, in my mind for a while, hadn't happened. And then, because I wasn't diagnosed then, so hadn't happened, got cut shelved somewhere. When I was in the hospice, so my husband had brain cancer. When he was actively dying, I was in the hospice and there was a lot of noise around his death. There was a lot of press interest. There was, partly because of my acting, my husband's dad was a footballer. It's a human interest story people wanted to know. And it was a lot of stuff going on outside the hospice. And there was me and there was my husband dying next to me. And I just was looking for someone online who was as young as me. I was 32 when he died, as young as me and talked like me, wasn't like ruined by all of it. And I looked and I didn't find what I wanted. I found sad, miserable. I was going on Pinterest and like searching widow and things that I was miserable viewing, as you can imagine.
It's a miserable word, to be fair.
It is a miserable word, not one I identify with. It's it comes with a lot of like an old. Well, I looked on something recently and it said something like cinnamon was like old witch or something, and I didn't really sort of resonate with that. As you would imagine.
Opposite of happy, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think I was looking for something, I didn't see it. And then I just recognized the fact that I already had a platform because of acting. And my most comfortable space is in front of a camera. I grew up on TV. I was 11 when I started on TV. And that was, in reality, and this is me looking back now, that's where the neurodivergent people were on a TV set. They were all there and I never felt weird there. So for me, that was always a safe space. So when Ross was in the hospice, I just started to talk about the experience. And that meant that a lot of people flocked my way because I had done self-development stuff myself for a long time, like because I was the kid on the telly and I wanted to also be happy and, work out how to do all of that stuff and be resilient. And so I knew the stuff. And because I was confident enough, I guess, to deliver it in a way that probably landed more than someone who didn't have that acting background, it resonated. And I got all these messages of people. And initially, when he first died, I wanted to help, but I couldn't, I wasn't coaching or I wasn't doing events or anything. But I still needed somewhere to put it. And so I just put this course together. Initially, it was a self-study course, 21-day course. And I thought, right, I'll just do 21 things that I do to not lose my mind in self-development, make it really easy. The idea came to me like one random day during all of the chaos of grief. And I just picked up an envelope, wrote down the 20 things on the back of an envelope. I was sat at the bottom of my stairs with my phone and I just recorded without any script 21 things that I just knew, and then packaged it up as a course, put a few workbooks together, pushed it out in the world, no pomp or ceremony or fancy launch strategy. And within a few weeks of putting that out, I started to see it gain this like momentum. And within a few months of that, I was watching hundreds of people do that course. And I realized it just, the simplicity of stuff sometimes works. And it was the most organic piece of work I've ever done.
So you sat at the bottom of the stairs.
Yeah.
How long ago was that, do you think?
So that was 2017. So that was the year that he died. And it would have been I think I released it in the November of that year.
Pre-diagnosis for you?
Yeah.
How ADHD was that moment when you did that?
Looking back, yeah. Looking back, I'm like, yeah. But I guess, things like that, that's where it really benefits us, right? Because there was no worry, there was no thought, there was no, spending a month planning and then talking yourself out of it or burning yourself out of it. Yeah. There was just idea, solution for something, boom. Because I wanted to, when I was speaking to people, I knew I wasn't in a space to do one-on-one coaching with them or anything like that. It wouldn't have been fair to. But I didn't want to give them nothing. When people are messaging me, and there's still the case now, they're usually in a space where they really need some solutions. And that's the one really, is definitely a thing with ADHD, that we look for answers and we look for solutions and we're curious about how we do that. So that was that for me.
You talk about writing those things on the back of an envelope. But then you talk about a program that hundreds of people were actually starting to use. Now, there's a little bit of detail you haven't filled in there, because you moved off the bottom of the stairs and wrote the resources, organised the resources, pushed those resources out, whatever platform to launch them, have that organised, blah, blah. There's a whole load of activity there, isn't there? How driven were you at that time? Is that the hyper-focus that we talk about through there?
So it was hyper-focused, because once it was in my head, I knew I just had to get it out. And I thought, I did already know how the platform was very basic. It wasn't like anything too fancy, and it was simple. And I think at the time, I mean, I had a website, but I don't even think it was on my website. I think it was literally on the whatever platform it was. It wasn't like was it a proper actual web address that was mine or anything. It was whatever it was. And I just pushed it out on social media. And then when I spoke to people, it was easy for me to go, look, there's this course I've got, it's 30 quid. Like, that was it. I just, it wasn't a big high end price for it or anything. This is the basics of what I do. But I think the hyper focus was there. And also because the grief was around it, I wanted that hyper focus and was allowing myself to have it, because it was like, I often say, and I've learned this about myself, I think I might have said this to you, but in times of difficulty for me, I've learned that I need to create, not consume. I need to, don't speak to me, do not let anybody in that's going to rock this, make me worse or make me feel bad. It's like, I need to be in my space and I need to create something.
Being productive. And excluding the negative to build your new positive.
Exactly.
And so we talk about ADHD very much, don't we, in terms of the negative, in terms of impairments, in terms of the symptoms of ADHD. And what we're seeking to achieve, long-term goal, is to change the narrative accepting that there is impairment, there is challenge, there is hardship. We'll go there and have a look at that. But then also looking for what can come out of being ADHD. So there's you at the bottom of the stairs. Nobody to yank your handbrake.
No.
Not even knowing you have a handbrake.
No.
Making something happen that is now game changer for you and game changer for many other people. And that positive, we need to reaffirm these positives, don't we?
We do.
All the time. We need to bring them out. So yeah, take us back to, how did you find you had ADHD? What's that particular part of your story? Because nobody delivered a letter saying you've got ADHD at first, did they?
So I guess from being young, I always, and I'm sure this will be a common thread, I always felt a little bit weird. And I would often, as I got older, I would often describe it as, I sometimes felt, because I then became an actor, so I literally learned to mask. I was great at it. I cosplayed as a neurotypical person and I was very good at it. And I held the anxiety internally. But early doors, firstly, I don't know if I said this to you, but my first acting class, I went back and I realized it was called sit and fidget, which is quite hilarious now.
Try to not.
Can anyone in here? No, everyone's the same. So when I was in spaces like sit and fidget, or I was then on a TV set, and I got my job on a TV set because I wrote them a letter and asked for the job at 11. Which again, looking back now, I recognize is not the normal way it would have happened.
Absolutely.
And again, a positive thing that comes out of it. But for years, I felt like I was behind a glass pane and everybody was responding to this version of me that I was portraying for them, so that and holding in the stuff that had been said to be weird or that's strange or don't do that. And I'm holding it all in now because I don't want to be weird. I don't want to be pushed out of the group, that feeling. But there's a disconnect for me. And people have always, and did always from being young, really connect. And I would often feel like, but why do you think we are really close? Because I wasn't really connected, but they were connected with a version of me.
Right.
And so I knew that, and I always felt that, and I always felt different. And I worried that was narcissism for a while, because I thought, why do you think you're so different? But I felt it like wherever I was, except when I was in really creative spaces, like on sets and working with actors. I didn't feel weird there. The ADHD thing, I guess, came up twice. It came up with, because of the spaces that I was in, a lot of thinky people, psychiatrists and creative people. And some people did know about it, maybe not quite at the time, how it displayed for girls and for women. It was mentioned a couple of times and I dismissed it, not in a not with a professional sat with me alone, but with people who knew me, mm-hmm. who that was their profession. And they kind of very lightly said, you do know that you probably have ADHD. And I dismissed it because at the time, it's not the time that we are now where we can talk about this stuff. I just thought, how very rude. And I guess this is also quite an ADHD thing. What have I done? I'm in trouble.
Took it as a negative label.
Took it as a negative, and this is why we're doing what we're doing. I took it as a negative. I thought, well, I've only heard naughty boys have that stereotypical stuff. Why you say, what did I do that was rude there?
This was so recent as well, right?
Yeah, well, it
wasn't that. Yeah, exactly that. Like these conversations weren't happening 5 years ago.
No, they weren't. So
that sort of happened, and then for me, the exploration where I decided actually you should probably be assessed. My oldest daughter, who has a diagnosis of autism, she was getting assessed, and we were looking at, is it ADHD? Is it autism? Is it grief? Is it anxiety? Is it a perfect mix of all of these things? I was very open to whatever it was. I only want the right solution for her. So I wasn't going, we went private because we didn't have an option, obviously. But I found it really weird that friends I've spoken to in the NHS, where they're asking the parent to see which one they want to be assessed for. That makes no sense to me. I'm not the professional. So I shouldn't really be choosing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to assess them for ADHD. Well, I don't know if it's autism or anxiety. Like, really, that should be a bit of a rounder.
And it's interesting that, because as part of the process, you've been through the process with us. There's part of the process where we have to work out what is going on and exclude all of the things that it's not. But I would suggest that doesn't happen everywhere to the highest of level. And at the end of the day, we get into that situation of conflict, I think, with professional decision making. If we need to help, we need to apply the right help. If we need to apply the right help, we do actually need to know what it is we're helping. Therefore, we do need to know the channel that we're going to go down as the major channel. But how we get to there has got to be exclusion, so we don't miss anything and go down the wrong channel. So an autistic daughter.
So autistic daughter, we were going through obviously a lot of the kind of initial assessments for ADHD as well, and I was sat in the room with her. My husband was autistic and had been late diagnosed at 26, autistic, again, before this wave of understanding autism, although he was loved being autistic. But I'd also seen that process. I'd sat in with him, and as we were going through the questions, I was kind of going, and oh, what is that? Like, why is that weird? And they were like, and bear in mind, she's my oldest daughter, so I'm doing these things, she's doing these things. It's my first child. I don't know what children do and what they don't. And then when we're going through things, they were like, yeah, that's atypical. And I think it sort of then made me start to question, because she was going through this process, for me to then ask her to explore her own identity and support her and ignore what was patently obvious felt wrong. I felt like I'm asking you to do that, but I'm going, but not me though.
No.
I don't have to deal with any of this. And I think it was a series of things. And then again, impulsively, then it was in my head. And then I thought, well, I have to be assessed immediately now, like tomorrow. And where can I be assessed tomorrow for this?
Suddenly it's the priority.
That's
and you're
all I want.
laser focused.
That's
because I can tell when you can see it, can't you? When you focus on something, and can we bring confidence into this concept?
Yes, yeah.
Because you're an actress, so you face rejection.
Yeah.
Right, and RSD is a proper
thing. I thought I didn't have RSD, and we can talk about that.
Well, I wanted to open up, but I wanted to sort of probably do it in an overarching way where the young version of you goes into acting and actually felt at home in that environment. Clearly not necessarily being rejected. And I want to build into kind of the fact that not only did you put up with that, you also had a successful career in acting, but you've also written a book about confidence. So the person we've got sitting in front of us now is, without any arrogance, is a contentment and knowledge to pass on to others. And just listening to you talking about your daughter then, the kind of the role model element of you, it's so important, particularly in girls. I've got 2 girls myself, right? And I've been trying to understand why more women don't come through into entrepreneurship. And that self-belief and confidence is actually at the heart of it, which you flip that narrative beautifully.
So my most recent, my book, Find Your Confidence, really brings together the 2 elements of my world, so the acting world and the self-development world, because within the book I cover 9 areas we might have a confidence dip, like general things like parenting being the Achilles heel, appearance, work, public speaking. But within it, and it's very ADHD friendly because I break everything small, chunky parts. You can read it whichever way you want. And at the end of it, it's both giving tips on external and internal. What I've learned, I know people get really triggered by fake it till you make it, but that does work as long as you're still doing the other stuff. You're not just faking it. When I was younger, I learned to fake it really well. So I could confidently talk. People would say she's an extrovert, she's confident.
Well, you're an actor.
Well, I'm an actor.
So you've been professionally trained to project something that you're not anyway, aren't you?
Like,
so you've been given a set of skills.
Been given the skills, and then I learned if you do this, you get this response of people, they like you more. So you can be popular, you can hide anything that is perceived as weird. Do that at home, whatever weird stuff you're doing, just do that there. Don't let them see that. So I learned all of that stuff. I learned to be confident. I learned to, go to a class on a whim and just do it and be comfortable. I learned to be on live TV. All of those things, I guess, are in most people's world, actually the bit that feels really scary. Whereas that was not scary to me. What was scary to me was being myself and unmasking. That was way scarier. And that took a lot more work and a lot more, whether it was therapy or coaching, all of the stuff that I did. And it took a long time. Like I do think it took a long time to kind of be what I describe as my weirdest self, and that to be okay.
Is there one thing you did that stands out? Just conscious of, I always find this fascinating, anyone watching or listening that is trapped in revealing themselves, and you are on the other side of that. It's liberating. You can feel it. You can feel yourself now.
Yeah.
and you've got your own coping mechanisms. But is there one thing, looking back with that perspective, that you did that you could recommend someone just to make that first step?
So I think for most people, I mean, I will always encourage people to start small, and it might be really incidental, like things that you think it's not that big a deal, it doesn't feel as big a leap. But when I'm working with people, it might be as simple as, at my events, I often say, wear what you dare, right? Now, wear what you dare for me is some kind of, sparkly jumpsuit or something. It's going to be further down, it's intermediate level, right? Whereas some people who only wear black and they hide themselves, they wear, teal or so, it's a little bit brighter. It's going to feel really, really like growth to them. So often I'll have people come to my events and I know it's been a leap for them, and they've said, maybe in the Happy Me, in our membership, they'll say, I'm wearing like a floral dress, and they'll really push themselves. We often as well have compliment cards at my events, so they'll get complimented for that. And there'll be that feeling of, it feels like a small thing, but something like that can be really game changing, because when they realize, or when we realize as people, that we do that thing and honestly nobody really cares, or actually you get a good response. And my husband was a good one for that, because he, being autistic, he was very black and white in his thinking, and he really genuinely was his fullest self. I mean, he annoyed people. He made them laugh, like hilarious. Like everyone will have a story. He was a big character. He definitely taught me that as well, because he would say, no one cares. No one's looking. No one matters. They won't care. Just do what you want. And before he died, he said to me, I've done everything I wanted to do. I regret nothing. I don't think that, to me, that's the aim, right?
Powerful statement.
I can live to 32 and say I've already done everything I wanted to do. I'm happy. I've lived in my own authentic way. Like, I think that's the key. So I think for people, it's looking at the stories you've been told, looking at the stories you're telling yourself. It's always the stories. What are like you say, what are you telling yourself in your head? I can't do this. People like me don't do this. Says who? Says who? See what happens if you do.
It's powerful advice, and the lived experience that you learn from someone yourself. It's super.
Take you back to something we never covered there. We nearly covered it, and I want to go back to ADHD, attention deficit, hyperactivity, inattention, all those things that are the wrong words to describe what we're talking about. And that opens a whole can of worms. Rejection sensitivity is the big one. Let's go back to it, if we may, because I think it's important in your story to look at how you've dealt with rejection, your sensitivity to rejection, and you've had trauma as well. And I think people can learn how you've handled those things and how you still probably do on a day-to-day.
Because when I learned about that, I was like, based on the word rejection, I was like, yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm not bothered by that at all. And the
way that you say that says that you are.
Right. So I'm like, I'm not even worried, whatever. And I was like, I realized I have learned resilience from acting. So, an actor, I forget, it's in my book, my first book, because I worked it out, and I'm not good at maths, probably do have dyscalculia. So if I'm doing maths, I'm serious about something. So I actually worked out how many times I've been rejected, and it was a lot, I've forgotten, but in the hundreds, to get some really good stuff. So people, on paper, they'd be like, oh, you've done this TV show. But I've had a lot of rejections to get there. And I learned to pick myself back up. I learned to see myself, sadly, and in some respects, as a product, that this is the way I look, this is the kind of parts I'll play. I mean, it served me because it created a disconnect from the rejection, I think. So I learned to get back up. That is something I still would say is a very high skill of mine. You can throw me something, I will find a way around it and I'll jump back up. Not in a stoic way, but just I will find a route. And so I learned that. But what I've learned, rejection sensitivity for me turns up in always feeling like I'm in trouble. And because we pick up the pattern recognition of how people say things normally, how people do things, I will find myself thinking, oh, they literally hate me. They hate me and they think I'm ridiculous and I'm too much. Too much storyline for ADHD people is probably a very common thread, right? And so in the wrong spaces, I will feel too much. And so I will feel a rejection even if somebody hasn't rejected me, but I'll feel they've looked at me different, or they've it'll be something small. My emotions and emotional regulation is very tied to that for me, because that is something that I still deal with. It's all or nothing. My emotions are here. They're joy, happiness, anger. It's all there. It has to be managed. Otherwise, the simplest thing can have me sobbing and devastated and thinking I'm going to die in a ditch. And I know it's ridiculous logically. And I also have an underpinning feeling of, yeah, you'll be all right. Like, I don't ever, even though it feels extremely painful. And I try to explain RSD to other people. Like, it's such a visceral feeling. If you experience it, it hits me in the gut, and it feels like the worst feeling in the world. And it's usually, for me, triggered by barely anything. It's literally made up in my head. It's not a rejection as in you didn't get that job. I can put that somewhere. Okay, I didn't get the job. But a rejection that I've literally made up, where do you go with that?
I was about to explore with you there, because you talk about your acting. There is a natural progressive pathway in acting, isn't there? That you will apply for a role and you will not get it. You'll read for a role, you won't get it. You'll be told you've got a job and you won't get it. And that brings a professional resilience to maybe rejection per se, but then an emotional rejection that will come from a strange look or a strange act or somebody not picking up the phone or not responding to a message that you've sent or those kind of things is a completely different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's you.
Because it's you as a person, not you trying to be the actor that you want to be. And you said there with absolute clarity, and I deal with that all the time. You know, no matter what you've told us about that resilience from your career, you've still got that. And I find it fascinating when we've got professional, successful, wonderful people with us, that you've got coping mechanisms, you've got an awareness. And in fact, I'll reframe those. You've got an awareness of rejection sensitivity, which starts to build coping mechanisms, which then starts to change behaviors, which then builds into your awareness more, which builds into your coping mechanisms, and so on. It becomes a positive cycle. And I think one of the things that, as we talk about rejection sensitivity more, we can give people is that there is a positive cycle about rejection sensitivity. It does not have to be a negative. I accept I'm sensitive to rejection. Don't reject me, because if you do, I'm going to fly off the handle. That's not valid. What's valid is if we can form a pattern of behavior within the self and get help to form that pattern of behavior, your books, your work, and what have you, then we can actually change the narrative. And that's what I keep wanting to bring us back to, isn't it?
You said that really well. Self-awareness.
Yeah.
And having the intelligence to flip that.
And the help of people making you aware that you can do that. No one's going to tell you can become more resilient to being rejected.
No.
Because you can. There's got to be more to it than that, hasn't there?
I think it's an awareness of triggers as well. It's an awareness of, oh, I know that historically this makes me feel uncomfortable. And then, you know, having the right people around you massively helps, and explaining it to them, because people who don't experience that level of it, it seems ridiculous. You know, you feel ridiculous. I feel ridiculous if I'm in that feeling of that, and I know my logical brain is going, this is a ridiculous reaction to this, but it doesn't make it any different.
No, that's not the handbrake on it, is it?
No, that's not going to be. But I think other people can sometimes help if they know, and the right people will maybe even ask, or you can share with them, this is what would help me. Sometimes it is as simple as someone saying, I still like you, we're cool, it's fine, chill out, let's get a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
It can be as simple as that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, sorry about that.
It shows you how important your community and your environment is, which you've been, that's a key thing for us, right? That's a key thing for you being here today. And at that moment where you effectively became a widow, that must have been a very lonely time, but you know, you have come flying out of that, organically building a community. Because I think isolation and loneliness is something we talk about a lot. And that does not suit.
I suspect, as Ross left your life, if I can put it that way, he didn't make you feel rejected by that loss.
No.
And I think his legacy, perhaps, if I can be that bold, was there doesn't sound to be in you, how dare you leave me this early, we haven't done it. He gave you accomplishments, he gave you completion, he almost packaged up closure for you.
He knew that as well. He knew he did that for everybody.
That's amazing, isn't
it? It is a lot of people who weren't around Ross close enough would often think that it was some kind of stoicism or a bravado, like he's not thinking about cancer. he wasn't thinking about cancer. He would say, they tell me I've got it, I can't really feel it. Like, he just got on with life, and he found life around it, even when it was, you know, brain surgeries and chemo and all of the stuff. And we talked about everything. And because, you know, now I recognize that Ross's clarity and his directness was very helpful for me, because I knew exactly where I stood, love or hate, whatever he was doing, I knew where he was at. And we literally, from the minute that he was diagnosed, he would say what he wanted and what he wanted to do. And I think, as uncomfortable as those conversations might be, I guess for a neurodivergent brain, whichever flavor you are, that's really helpful for us, because we're so used to being misunderstood or misunderstanding. So Ross was, he saying that he'd done everything he wanted to do, that's really comforting. Saying, you know, he didn't want things like, you know, a grave or a plaque, or he didn't want anything like that, because he didn't want to write letters to the girls. My daughters are 14 and 12. They were 6 and 4 when he died. I asked him, well, do you want to do anything like that? Do you want to do videos? And he went, no, because I don't know where they're going to be at in their life. I trust you. Like, we've had kids together because I love you and I trust you. They'll be all right. I know they've got you. I know they've got good people around them. If I start writing letters to the version of them that I've made up, what if I say something and it's not in keeping with who they are and it jars them? And I don't want anybody tied to having to go to somewhere. And so I think all of that, Ross knew what he was doing. Like, he knew, and he would say, I just want it to be easy when I die. Like, I don't want you to have to think about things like that and to have to make decisions on your own. That's massively helped me. The difficulty for me, I think, and it was not something I anticipated, because why would I? But the dip in my confidence when Ross died was really a surprise to me, because from being, you know, 11, I was in adult spaces. You know, I was always at 17, I moved to London. I've always been very hyper independent, to be honest. Not always a positive, but I've always prided myself on I can be in any space and I'll be okay and I'll work it out. I think with ADHD, when I'm younger and I haven't got kids, I can run about jumping impulsively, doing whatever I want to do. It doesn't really matter. And in creative spaces, being like that doesn't matter. Ross and I got together, we balanced each other. His autism, my ADHD, balanced each other out. We have kids. When you have kids, you have to be places and do things, and you have to go there every day. They have to go to school every day. I mean, how annoying is that for an ADHD brain? You want me to do that every day, the same thing.
In the same way, in the same
way. Awful, actual, tedious.
So to wrap that round, if I can, to look for the lessons of what Ross gave you as a person with ADHD was the clarity of where he was, so that you didn't feel any rejection of the loss. And the lesson we can take forward, perhaps, is that if people can actually give you completeness, they can give you confidence, clarity, the resilience to not feel rejected. And as you said, some friends reaching out to you saying, look, you've done that wrong, and I've got to tell you that's gone wrong. But it doesn't affect how much I love you and how much I care for you. And you've got to hear that. You've got to believe that. I think if that's our take-home message as we wind out of this, I think that's a pretty strong one, don't you? And there's
so strong.
You know, so brilliant. You're brilliant, and your clarity of thought and your passion for wanting to make a difference in a very different way. It's not stereotypical ADHD way of making a difference. I've thoroughly enjoyed this half an hour. Really have. A lot to offer.